My fingers tapped the edge of the table. Dry paint ground into the grooves of my knuckles as a circle of faces in the small, windowless conference room watched me with different shades of polite discomfort. One of the professors, silver hair cut short and neat, pressed her lips into a thin line as she rifled through the binder of slides I had brought. Her voice broke the silence, the tone practiced, not unkind, just weary. "Matthew, your concept work is uninhibited." She paused, shuffling the word around, looking for a better one and giving up. "But as the committee has discussed, the matter is not so much your talent, but a question of focus and discipline. You don't seem to stay within the lines." I stared at the painting projected on the wall behind her, a smear of gold across charcoal blue. What I saw? The way sun on English Bay cracked through cloud after weeks of rain. What they saw? A mess, lacking form, unfocused. "Matthew," said another, a thin man with glasses sliding down his nose, "the faculty has decided not to advance you to the next year. You're welcome to reapply after a year away, should you find your approach more aligned with the program's objectives." They offered half smiles consolation, not connection. My mouth flooded with a metallic taste, the memory of turpentine, nervous energy shivering up my spine. I wanted to speak, wanted to demand. What is it for, if not to see? But I just nodded. There's a feeling when your dream isn't slipping, but splintering. A hairline crack you can't sand out. The meeting ended. I collected my portfolio, a stack of canvases and heavy sketchbooks, and navigated the echoing corridors of Emily Carr, the autumn afternoon so gold-bright outside that it hurt my eyes. I walked along Granville Island, with my bag cutting into my shoulder. Every surface, even the scuffed sidewalk, seemed brighter for a moment, the angles sharper and the shadows longer. I memorized it, letting the discomfort settle into my chest, heavy and knotted. My sister Chloe met me at home, sprawled on the couch, phone cradled against her shoulder as she traded gossip in sharp banter with someone on the other end. "He's home early," she called into the phone. "Didn't make the cut, I guess." Later, I caught my father in the kitchen, arms crossed, mug of coffee cooling on the counter. He didn't look up from his newspaper as I told him. There was no rage, just a weary disappointment, a failing long rehearsed. "Painter, huh?" he said, low. "Maybe now's the time you look for a real job." You'd think there'd be a moment for kindness, a warmth in the wound, but instead, practicalities, rent, money, the kind of silent camaraderie that grows in the cracks between parent and child, as each quietly checks off the roster of hope and resignation. Most of my friends faded away that year, some with notes of pity, some with distancing jokes. "You gonna be the next Van Gogh? When you sell your first painting, buy me a coffee, all right?" But at every family dinner, the disapproval wrapped around me like thick wool. My Uncle Dean, his knuckles always red, put it bluntest. "You need to give your head a shake. Vancouver's expensive. Nobody's gonna—" I bought cheap house paint from the hardware shop on Main, sometimes trading sketches for half-finished tubes of color at the little art supply store. I painted in corners on cardboard, driftwood, the backs of unsold canvases from thrift stores. Nights I'd work under a flickering light bulb in the basement suite I shared with 2 engineering students, the walls humming with electronic beats and the muffled negotiations of shared space. My roommates rolled their eyes. One time I left a drying landscape in the main room by accident, and the next morning someone had scrawled "Vancouver Rain," a study in dreariness on it in Sharpie. Vancouver summers ran short. By August, the city was already paling, spitting rain and cold wind. My name became a kind of soft joke around the family table, a basketball with no hoop, a dreamer who didn't know the cost of it all. Each Thanksgiving, I sat quiet, spearing turkey, while the cousins pointedly asked about my little hobby. My mother winced but said nothing. For a while, I almost believed what they said. The weight of their skepticism pressed into every brushstroke. The world is loud when it insists you are foolish. But sometimes the work hummed anyway. A night when the colors came together, when a slip of gray velvet in the sky made the water flash green, and I was inside the storm and not outside of it. I painted downtown alleys the way I saw them, grapefruit pink and green at dusk, chipped neon bleeding out. I painted strangers hunched at bus stops, their faces blurred by drizzle, the copper gold of Chinatown lanterns in late summer. Some nights, exhausted, I scraped it all off, convinced it was worthless. But I woke up again, still wanting to begin. 3 winters passed that way, jobs changing, apartments shrinking, but the need to see never left. One night, after muffled hours on a warehouse loading dock, I slumped on the bus to East Van, clutching a battered canvas. My hands shook with exhaustion, but I had to finish. In a fit of daring, I posted a photo of my painting on an online forum, rain strobing across Main Street, all the colors running together at midnight, and went to sleep, defeated and sure of nothing. The next morning, my phone vibrated non-stop. A woman named Marjorie Mewing from Pendulum Gallery wanted to know if I'd consider showing my work, said she loved the energy and desperation of my colors. I read the email 3 times as sun poured through the blinds, hot and crisp, sharp against the memory of being so sure I would fail. They took 5 of my pieces, mounting them along high white walls, spotlights blazing down. It felt fake, walking those galleries, each painting tagged with my name, the same name my father, reluctantly, let me sign on birthday cards, the name the professor said belonged to someone undisciplined. On opening night, strangers asked me about the way I painted rain, what I saw in the gray. For the first time, people leaned in to listen. A man in a green coat bought my painting of Canby Bridge at dusk for more money than I'd made at any of my jobs that winter. He told me his daughter needed hope. That show led to a mural commission on Commercial Drive, then another in Gastown. For a long time, I couldn't believe any of it was real. Each check felt like a borrowed suit, each gallery opening like a prank played at my expense. Then things happened faster. An artist's residency in Spain, painting wild hills that glowed bright as any Vancouver evening. A joint show in Toronto. Sometimes critics wrote about my refusal to romanticize urban life. Sometimes they called my work restless, honest, quietly triumphant. I read those reviews with a sick thrill, part pride, part terror that someone would see through me. Years rattled past on buses, in airports, carrying paint-stained clothes and travel-worn sketchbooks. Still, my nights traced back to Vancouver's rainy spine, the angles of Lonsdale, the stillness of Kitts Point, the silent flicker of rain on English Bay. But in the end, every success returned me not forward, but inward, to the bruised boy sitting in that university boardroom, hearing that I didn't fit. 7 years after that meeting, on a wet Friday as spring returned, I flew in from Montreal. Rain streaked greasy over the taxi window. The city seemed to shimmer with its old nervousness, new towers rising, haze burning off the bay in sheets. A big mural, a citywide art project celebrating Vancouver's centennial, had selected me to paint its centerpiece, the new community rec center downtown. 10 stories tall, the mural would look out over the city, colors I'd hoarded in memory. The launch was scheduled as part of the city's open house press, council members, neighborhood committees, and anyone else who cared to see. I invited my family, emails sent in hopes heavy as anchors. The morning of the unveiling arrived steely and cold, typical Vancouver clouds pressing low, the smells of sea and exhaust mixed together. My hands itched with remembered nerves as I met Marjorie, now a close friend on the plaza in front of the building. Media milled around, snapping photos as technicians prepped the canvas for the reveal. The crowd gathered, faces unfamiliar, save for a tight cluster. My father. Hands in pockets, face unreadable. Chloe, shifting from foot to foot, her red raincoat bright as a beacon. My uncle, eyes skeptical but curious. My mother waved timidly from beside a cousin, the wind picking her umbrella inside out. Chloe was first to break the tension, brushing rain off her cheeks. "Nice turnout," she said, voice low. Before I could answer, one of the city officials tapped a microphone. "We're privileged to have Matthew Wong, one of Vancouver's own, commission for this project. His work captures the heart of the city, the vulnerability and the relentless energy that makes this place home." I stared at my knees, breath sawed in my chest as she spoke. There is a certain hush in anticipation. Everyone, even those who didn't care, was waiting. At a signal, the huge gray drape slid down, a clean ripple of motion. The mural exploded into the gray morning, a sweep of blue and gold, streaks of burnt orange, rain-slick streets shimmering, faces in motion, umbrellas splayed against impossible angles. The city as I knew it, anxious and vivid, lonely and full of battered light. There was a pause, a moment longer than a gasp, shorter than a prayer. Then applause, growing, echoing off the concrete. Cameras flashed, reporters with mics angled in. My family was silent. Eyes trapped on that 10-story wall. My father's mouth compressed, then quivered. So small I almost missed it. Chloe's eyes shone wide and wet, her smile cracked at the edges. Even my uncle stared up, jaw slack, a small shake of his head betraying something I'd never seen in him before. Recognition, maybe respect. Marjorie pressed my arm, gentle. "Look at them," she whispered. I watched as my family, the ones who had laughed, doubted, offered tough love edged with condescension, stood dwarfed by the city. Looking up at what I had made, it was as real as the wind at their ankles, as truth as the rain stinging our faces. For once, their words were spent. In their silence, I tasted a victory both raw and tender. Crowds pressed close for photos. Children asked about the colors. Elderly women told me they'd never seen Vancouver painted that way. Honest, rough, still beautiful. Chloe hugged me, tears sticking her hair to my cheek. I saw my father lift his phone to take a picture, something he'd done on every birthday, every graduation for the family scrapbook. But this time, it was not forced